Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, rushing floodwaters turn I-17 into a river. How much rain is too much rain for Valley flood control efforts? Also tonight, we'll hear about ASU's role in an upcoming mission to Mars, and we'll look at efforts to increase trade between Arizona and Mexico. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Yesterday's monsoon storms made for massive flooding around the valley, with some areas, mainly to the north, getting as much as 5 inches of rain. Got so bad that parts of I-17 there near Dixoletta Road turned into a river of muddy water from a nearby wash. Joining us now to talk about all of this is Randy Cerveny from ASU School of Geographical Sciences. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, Ted.
This is amazing stuff here. Where were the worst spots hit as far as flooding was concerned?
Well, the most of the storm from yesterday was centered in over the north central part of town and then more towards the west. That there were actually parts in the southeast that hardly got a drop associated with this big mass of water that came up from Mexico.
And we saw I-17, which kind of turned into, it sounds like New River became a big river. Levine seemed to get hit again. Are those always the places that seem to get hit the worst when it comes to flooding?
Well, it depends on the movement of the storms. In this particular case, the storms were coming up from the south. And what happens is topography plays a really, really big role. When that moisture hits a slope that slopes up, it can drop out that moisture. Well, in this particular case, the moisture hit that upslope area and then just sat there and kept running into it and dumping more and more and more water. So it's very much topography based. It's where the valley turns into an upland slope that you're usually going to get the greatest amounts of flooding and precipitation.
And we heard the same thing. Was it the same thing the previous week there at South Mountain, where the storm just kind of rose up the mountain and just sat there?
Right, and that's one of the things during the monsoon, we don't have very strong winds aloft that move these things really fast. In the Midwest, storms move really fast because the jet stream is pushing them along. Here during our monsoons, there's not really anything to basically push the thunderstorm once it gets started. So when it finds a mountain, it just keeps pushing that moisture up and up the mountain and sits there.
Okay, so we had an incident with the Skunk Creek Wash here. This muddy water from Skunk Creek Wash gets into the CAP Canal. How does that happen?
Well, the amount of water that was being funneled in through Skunk Creek, through this particular storm was incredible. We were getting values on the order of 4.5 to 5 inches over a 4-hour period. And that is a return time that we would expect to see only once every 5 to 1,000 years. So this is a pretty rare event that we were looking at.
But we heard once in a 1,000-year event when it was parked over South Mountain last week. What's going on out there?
Well, it's kind of like 2 winners of the lottery from the valley. It can happen, it's rare, but in this particular case, yes, we had 2,000-year events, but they were located in different areas, both associated with localized storms.
Did areas not used to flooding get hit more this time around? Or again, are these the usual suspects?
These are pretty much the usual suspects. If you remember that we've had flooding up around New River to Black Canyon City in the past, where exactly it happens is a function of the localized thunderstorm itself. But where this terrain turns into more of an upslope position, that's going to be the areas where we're going to have the greatest chance for the water to be funneled down into the rivers.
Well, with that in mind, are the flood control efforts out there, are they simply not used to this kind of rain? Are they not? Are our efforts not prepared for this kind of thing?
Well, I think we actually handled it pretty well. There weren't any loss of lives. There were some pretty incredible rescues, but not any loss of lives. The key is how many people are affected as to what we want to do. Now, back many decades ago, there was a similar type of situation over Indian Bend in Scottsdale. What they decided to do was simply change the whole Indian Bend Wash area into a green belt so that floodwaters would not influence people. They would just be trapped in the parks and in the golf courses that exist along that area. We could do something like that, but that would cost money, and the amount of people that would be affected there is less than what it would be obviously in a place like Scottsdale.
Now, again, that Indian Bend wash yesterday got hit. We saw the video of that, and it looked like it handled things relatively well, although people had to be rescued from El Dorado Park there on McDowell and Miller because, again, it got too high.
Yeah, and part of it too is just a lack of knowledge that a lot of people that have come to the valley in just say the last 5 to 10 years don't realize how quickly the situation can change. That where places like maybe Tempe or Scottsdale only get a little bit of water, when that water gets funneled down into a stream system, it can rapidly turn a dry lake bed or dry riverbed into a raging torrent.
Well, with that in mind, can't we get something like yesterday? Will that change the topography? Will that change the geography? Will that change the way these washes run in areas that were flooded? Now we might have new areas. You know what I mean? Are they carving out a new normal?
Well, they are definitely geologic scale events. So there have been changes in the actual landscape of the area, say around South Mountain or around New River. Now, what happens though is the city will go in and actually rechannel things so that it doesn't start to form a new normal. They'll try to get it back to a more normalized flow.
Okay, so the idea of flood control efforts after something like this, how far do you go? How far do you change things? Do you just say, hey, it's once every 1,000 years, good luck to our next generation?
Well, I think it's a cost-benefit situation. You have to basically look at how many people are impacted and what the cost of doing those kind of changes would actually be. Also, I think we need to make sure that people are aware of the logistics. You don't put a home down in a dry lake bed or dry riverbed here in Arizona. It's just a silly thing to do.
But they are doing it, aren't they?
Because that looks nice. I mean, it's really nice to have those trees that you find along these normally dry riverbeds to build a house around, but those dry riverbeds can become very
well,
quickly.
yeah, but it's not so nice to watch your home go floating down, you know, while you're standing there on the side of the bank waving goodbye. So are there ordinances, or should there be more in the way of making sure that folks aren't building in floodplains?
Well, and that's a problem because there are a lot of places where developments have gone in and they have not really taken into account the local topography and the local drainage patterns. I mean, if you go up to around Deer Valley, there's dams that are built where you have housing on both sides of the dam. Well, obviously that doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
So I think what we have to do is to make sure that when these housing tracts are going in, that the planners take into account not only how many people they can jam into a given area, but also the underlying topography, the underlying landscape that exists, and try to work with it as much as possible.
So will New River, Black Canyon City, those areas especially up in that north, we saw the I-17 there at Dixoletta Road and the water coming out of the, I mean, will they, when you get good monsoon, slow moving, wet monsoons, are they just always going to get hit? I mean, are we going to see this kind of thing here? Maybe not alongside the freeway. I still don't know how it got onto the freeway. Someone needs to do something about that. But basically, that's the way it is, isn't it?
Well, there are some places in the valley that do tend to get more concentrated storms for some reason or another. Around Union Hills, for example, that's another area that commonly floods when we get a monsoon thunderstorm. A part of it is how much water gets into these areas and how fast are the pumps that can pump it out.
Yes.
So that with the freeways, for example, when they flood, it's simply that they can't handle the amount of water that's going into the system.
Last question. I've asked this numerous times to you and Nancy Selloway, and I think, I've been here a long time, it seems like in the past, the west side never got the storms. The west side was always dry and the storms were always coming around somewhere around the east side. Doesn't it seem to you within the last few years, 10 years, whatever, the west side is just getting hammered by storms more so than in the past?
I think there is some cycles to this. When I first came here back in the 80s, yes, it seemed like the east side was the place that was getting the buildups. You would watch it coming off the Superstition Mountains and then coming into Mesa and Tempe. I think what happens, because the monsoon is such an individual beast, that each year's monsoon is different from the last, that sometimes you'll have it coming in from the west and the east, but we haven't figured out why.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
So we really don't know. It's been a pretty good summer though, hasn't it?
Oh, it has been. The actual temperatures have been good. The rainfall at Sky Harbor hasn't been that great, but as we
Yeah.
all know, parts of the valley here
Yeah,
have
go
gotten their
tell-
share of monsoon water.
Yeah, tell them the folks on South Mountain. Hey, good to see you again. Thanks
My
for joining
pleasure.
us. Tonight's edition of Arizona Technology and Innovation looks at ASU's role in designing and operating onboard cameras for NASA's next rover mission to the surface of Mars. Jim Bell is with ASU's School of Earth and Space Exploration. He's in charge of ASU's part in the mission. Good to have you here.
Great to be here, Ted.
The ASU is now designing and operating what? Cameras for NASA? Talk to us about this.
So we've got cameras and other instruments all over the solar system. There's something like 30 spacecraft out there exploring the solar system, and ASU is playing a leading role in many of them. We've got cameras around Mars, cameras on the surface of Mars. There's cameras around Saturn that people are involved with. There's cameras on the way to an asteroid, Mercury, the moon. I mean, just a fabulous time for space exploration.
And again, now for this particular mission now, we got color panoramic zoom cameras and they're stereoscopic. What does all that mean?
It means we're going to take some great pictures of the red planet. The next rover that goes will launch in 2020. And it'll be very much like, you may be familiar with the Curiosity rover, the big Mini Cooper-sized spacecraft that landed a few years ago. It'll be very much like that one. In fact, NASA is using a lot of spare parts from that to help save money, keep the costs down. But this one will have a bit of a different mission because unlike Curiosity, this new rover, which doesn't have a name yet, but they'll name it someday, will be designed to collect and cache samples. There'll be a little container on board.
Right.
And we'll put drill cores in there, we'll scoop some dirt, maybe some atmospheric samples. And that little cache will be on the rover, or the rover will set it down somewhere, and a future mission in the 20s will go and get that cache and bring it back to the Earth.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so our role, our cameras, will be taking pictures of the rocks and the sand and the dust and the dirt and the formations and the layers, trying to help best choose those samples to eventually bring back to the Earth.
Now, and again, these two cameras that ASU is helping develop and these sorts of things, these are kind of, if I'm not mistaken, are they like the eyes, basically the eyes of the rover? Is that a good analogy?
That's a very good analogy, Ted. We think about, you can often think about the rovers as alive in some sense. We think of them as field geologists, robotic field geologists, and they have eyes. They're up on top of the head, which can spin around and look up and down. And then there's wheels, which are kind of like the legs, which can move around, give us mobility. There's an arm, right? And so on the end of the arm, there are these fingers, there's a camera, there's a drill, there's other chemical instruments that are kind of like the nose that let us sniff the terrain and get the chemistry and the mineralogy. So, you know, we do anthropomorphize them, make them seem human, and they're just robots, and they're only as smart as the people who program them.
But they're pretty smart. You guys are pretty smart. They're red, green, blue color imaging. We got that straight, correct?
Red, green, blue, and then so we'll get pictures just like we would see with our own eyes if we were there. We see in the red, green, blue. But because they're using digital detectors like your cell phone camera, we can also see in the ultraviolet, a little more farther in the blue, and we can also see in the infrared, a little farther into the red. So we have a wider range of color perception with these robotic cameras. And it turns out different kinds of rocks and minerals reflect light in different ways in those ultraviolet and infrared colors. So we can do a little bit of sort of chemical mineral analysis with the cameras too.
And as far as the zoom is concerned, how tight can you get? How wide can you get?
We can get very tight. We can get down to seeing features that are only sort of a millimeter or so in size from our position up on the mast, which is a couple of meters away from the ground. And we interface with a microscope that'll be on the arm as well. So we can go from the macroscopic sort of panoramic view all the way down to sort of millimeter scale. The microscope picks up there, goes down to tens of micron scale. So we can see the entire range of textures and features with these cameras.
That's a nice lens for anyone's camera right
Yes,
there. Wide
it is.
angle all the way down to the microscopic there.
It is.
As far as ASU's part now, you again are leading this. Are you going to have to go to NASA? Are you going to lead from Tempe? How's that going to work?
So we're working with a small company in San Diego called Malin Space Science Systems. They've got a long track record of building great cameras for space. So we're working with them. We'll do a bunch of the fabrication there, and we'll do some of the testing on the Tempe campus. We will, once the cameras are built, we deliver them to the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, where they're building the whole rover. They get bolted onto the top of the rover. We have a full-scale model of this rover on the Tempe campus, actually. It's the same as Curiosity. It looks the same. We deliver them to JPL in Pasadena. They then do the final testing, make sure it's all, we didn't leave the lens caps on or anything like that. And it all gets buttoned up, folded up, and put inside this cruise and launch configuration on top of the rocket that gets shipped down to Florida, put on top of the rocket. And in sort of early to mid 2020, that rocket will launch to Mars. It'll take 9 months to a year, depending on exactly when they launch. It'll all still be all kind of cocooned up.
Sure.
And then in a very rapid amount of time, just a few hours time, everything opens up as it enters the Martian atmosphere. There's a heat shield that's protecting it. A parachute slows down, and you may have seen the movies of the way Curiosity landed with that crazy sky crane,
Yes.
jet packs and lowering the rover down this crane. And we'll do the same thing for this vehicle. Get down onto the surface, the mast will pop up, and then we'll open our eyes. And hopefully
Oh boy.
we will have done our job right.
And that will be one time when you are very nervous, I would imagine.
I'm already nervous about it.
I'll bet you are. As far as ASU being chosen to participate, how was ASU chosen? Why was ASU chosen?
So there was an international competition that NASA had. The administration and Congress decided we're going to send another rover to Mars in 2020. And so NASA sends out an announcement to the world saying, we want to know what the best instruments are for that rover. We need images, we need chemical analysis instruments, we need instruments to drill, et cetera. And so we wrote a proposal, a group of us at ASU and colleagues from around the country, around the world actually. We have some European colleagues as well. Formed a team, wrote a proposal to respond to that, to try to fit within all these resources, the mass, the volume, the power, the cost. Mm-hmm. So it's a box you got to squeeze into and all these parameters. And we submitted our proposal last January, and it turned out 57 other teams submitted their proposals too. There's a lot of work being done out there in space exploration, preparing for opportunities like this. So it's very competitive. I don't know how many cameras we competed against. I don't know the details of all the proposals. It's a very, carefully closed process with reviews and all that kind of stuff. In the end, they picked 7 instruments, and we're one of them.
Well, congratulations and good luck. You know what's ahead of you, don't you? You know for the next few years what you're going to be busy with.
I'm going to be busy building cameras to go to Mars.
Excellent, excellent. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We want to hear from you. Submit your questions, comments, and concerns via email at arizonahorizon@asu.edu.
Mexico has the 14th largest economy in the world and is expected to continue to grow over the coming decades. But Arizona is not among the top states for trade with Mexico. That's why Tucson is working to strengthen business relationships with Sonora. Fernanda Echevarri has a story.
Government and business leaders in Mexico and the U.S. say both countries benefit from thinking about Arizona and Sonora as one economic region. One of those government officials is Ramón Guzmán Muñoz, the mayor of Nogales, Sonora.
Nosotros tenemos un concepto muy bien definido de lo que es el ser amigo, el ser socios, está delimitado por una línea, el que tengamos familiares aquí y allá. Somos prácticamente un mismo estado, o dos estados, pero con un solo corazón. Esa es la realidad en todos los aspectos. Yo lo veo muy bien.
Last year, 9.5 million people crossed into the United States at ports of entry in Arizona, and Guzman Muñoz says both countries must learn how to do business with each other. At a recent conference in Tucson, business leaders and government officials from Sonora and Arizona talked about immigration, customs, highways, and transportation, and how both states can learn to conduct cross-border business more successfully. Juan Padres is an economic development specialist for the city of Tucson. He focuses on helping both countries understand each other.
I grew up in the border, so I understand both cultures very, very well. I know how to do business in Mexico, and I know how to do business in the U.S. So part of my job is to bridge that gap.
He does that across many industries in Sonora.
It's a hodgepodge of what we're seeing. We see everything from a very, very small business owner who has a very limited production that wants to enter the U.S. market to huge manufacturing. So we go to both sides of the scale and everything in between.
The number of commercial trucks crossing the U.S. border here is up 3% to about 312,000 a year. That means wear and tear on the roads in both countries, man-hours to regulate the flow, and workers to load and unload the cargo. Sonora's economy has grown by about 6%, with its largest growth in the aerospace, mining, and automotive industries. Many in southern Arizona's business community want Tucson to be the logistics hub for cross-border commerce and trade.
Certainly we're in the younger state, we're in the growing stages right now. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be put in place, but we are catching up. This is something we probably, Tucson should have been doing 25, 30 years ago because just of our strategic location. But once we start putting all those assets in place and we start building all that infrastructure and we start announcing to the world, really everybody outside of Tucson, that we're open for business, Tucson can take advantage of it tremendously.
He says Tucson's future is in trade and logistics.
People laugh, or some people might disagree with me when I say that this could potentially become another Little Long Beach. But when you start putting all these assets together of a seaport just 4 hours away from us, an east-west link on the rail, and you have a very good lines of communication in I-8, I-10, I-19, and then you have three major airports surrounding Tucson that could potentially all interlink with all these other assets.
Logistics are a critical part of doing business between two countries, as are cultural matters. Padres says there are other unspoken rules that vary between two cultures.
If I would have to say what is the biggest challenge so far, and it is the cultural differences. So you have a lot of Mexican business owners who don't really speak English, who don't understand our laws, and it's intimidating. It's intimidating to go from one country to another, speak a different language, a different way of doing business, different laws, different accounting rules. It's intimidating.
Business owners in the U.S. experience similar intimidation.
There's a lot of companies who have a lot of interest in going to Mexico. They understand that there is a huge potential and opportunity to do business. But when we invite them and say, hey, let's go down to Guaymas to check out a few clients, a possible facility, again, it's a different language, it's a different culture, there are certain perceptions on both sides of the border, whether it is crime in Mexico or whether it's SB 1070 in Arizona.
If you do need translation,
Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild says Arizona has felt the effects of such legislation. He has traveled to Mexico multiple times since he took office and says the state's economy could benefit from an increase in trade between the two countries. He says a good start is bringing back international flights to the Tucson International Airport.
we hope and believe that by late fall, we will have a direct flight, a nonstop flight, from Tucson to Hermosillo. And that's critical because once you go to Hermosillo, Hermosillo is a hub for the rest of Mexico. So you can go to anywhere in Mexico from Hermosillo, and that is important to us.
In 2013, trade between Arizona and Mexico totaled $14 billion, split evenly between imports and exports. Still, Rothschild says Arizona could improve its trade rankings with Mexico.
When we break it down by state, California is number 1 and Texas is number 2, and that makes some sense because California, you're trading into the Pacific Rim, and Texas, you're trading into the Midwest and the eastern part of the United States. Right now, Illinois and Michigan are ahead of us, and that's just something that we can improve on and correct and use as a basis for building our own local economy.
Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we will meet a local photographer who will explain how he creates unique stereographic images of the state. That's Thursday evening at 5:30 and 10 right here on Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.